Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Your Author series at the library. Your Author brings children's and young adult authors and illustrators to our Los Angeles public libraries. This summer, all of our programs were virtual, online, every Friday at 4 p.m. Although this will be our last Your Author program for the summer, Your Author will be back in September. On Friday, September 18th, we'll be back with more children's and young adult authors and illustrators for you to enjoy virtually from home. Thank you all for joining us throughout this whole summer and for joining us today. A big, big thank you to the Library Foundation, the Lenore S. and Bernard A. Greenberg Fund for allowing this program to be possible. Before we begin, I have a few announcements that I would like to share with you so you can continue to connect with the Los Angeles Public Library and just some exciting, fun, up-and-coming events. First, don't forget about the summer reading program. Unfortunately, the summer reading program was virtual, but it was still fun tracking all the reading and learning we did this summer. And if you want to help support our 50,000 days of reading goal, please visit lapl.org/summer. You can still continue to keep track of all the reading and learning you've done this summer until August 31st. Also, there is free comic book summer. Now, in May, there's usually a free comic book day that I'm sure most of you know about. But because we've been virtual and most of our programs throughout have been virtual, you can still enjoy free comic book day by following the hashtag Free Comic Book Summer LAPL. If you follow that hashtag, there will be all of the branches, including the Central Library, supporting comic book stores and wonderful graphic novelists, authors, artists, and sharing their favorite graphic novels as we continue to celebrate comic books and graphic novels. And if you visit the website Free Comic Book or Google that, you can find out more information, but please follow our social media channels, the Central Library, and other branches, and look out for that hashtag, Free Comic Book Summer LAPL. Also, on Thursday, August 27th, there will be a Make Your Own Comic program. So you can always go to the library's website, lapl.org, and go visit the online calendar for more information. Finally, Los Angeles Libros Festival. So last year, there was a Los Angeles Libros Festival, a bilingual festival for the whole family to enjoy. And this year, it will be virtual, and it will be on Saturday, September 26th. So please check out the library's website in the future for more information about that. But I'm very excited about the Los Angeles Libros Festival because your author friends, Joe Cepeda and Juana Martinez-Neal, wonderful children's authors and illustrators, will be there. So please write that down, everyone. Los Angeles Libros Festival on Saturday, September 26th. Enjoy those wonderful family events of connecting with young adult and children's authors and illustrators. Now, my name is Lauren Castillo. I am the children's librarian at the Studio City branch, part of Los Angeles Public Library. And I'm smiling so big because our special guest, your author today, is author and illustrator, Lauren Castillo. Hello, Lauren.
Hello. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here this evening.
I'm so excited that Lauren Castillo is here. She's a marvelous children's author and illustrator, award-winning, in fact. Of course, Nana in the City. I love Nana in the City. This is Lauren's Caldecott Honor winning picture book. And then,
It is.
Lauren,
Thank you.
I just have to give a shout out to two of my favorite illustrated books of yours that I use at story time a lot.
Thank you.
It is not time for sleeping. Look at those marvelous illustrations by Lauren Castillo.
You can draw dogs. Yes. Once I get to draw dogs.
And of course, 20 yawns. Wonderful illustrations. We are so happy and lucky to have you with us this afternoon or this evening on the East Coast.
Yes. I know the sun is setting on the side here. It's a beautiful night. I'm in Pennsylvania, so it's fun to be talking to the West Coast and dreaming of beaches and palm trees. Wishing I was there.
Oh, Lauren, we're happy to be here with you right now. And Lauren has her most recent book, which I'm very excited about. It's called Our Friend Hedgehog, The Story of Us. And what I'm most excited about is that it is a beginner chapter book. So for children that are kind of moving away from picture books and starting to read beginner chapter books, this is a wonderful book to start. Also, it would make a great read aloud for younger children and older children to read by themselves.
Yes.
Do you agree, Lauren?
Yes, I hope so. Yes, family read aloud. I hope so. Yeah. That's how I picture it in my head, at least.
I feel like Lauren met that goal. So because we have so much fun packed in with Lauren Castillo today, we're just going to start. So Lauren is going to read parts of Our Friend Hedgehog, The Story of Us. She's going to talk about how she became an author and illustrator. Yep. She is going to have a drawing demonstration, a pre-recorded drawing demonstration. So please have your paper and pencil handy.
Yes. Yeah, this is a great time if you would like to grab paper and a pencil or crayons or colored pencils, any drawing instrument you can find or scrap of paper, because in a little bit we'll do that drawing demo. So you can follow along.
And why I also love Our Friend Hedgehog, The Story of Us, is all of the characters in the story are very distinct. They all have their own special personalities.
They sure do.
And Lauren, you were telling me there was an inspiration for my personal favorite character in your story, Mole. Is that true?
It is an inspiration for Mole, and I'm gonna try to turn my camera. If you can see that little pupper there in that beanbag chair, this is Mole, the inspiration behind Mole. So this is my dog, Keiko. She is 14 and a half years old. You can see by that gray muzzle that she's getting up there in age, but she is a sprightly little dog. And she was the inspiration for the character of Mole. So I'll bring her onto the camera again later. I'm gonna let her rest for a minute. So yes, that is my Mole character. And also, while we're talking about inspiration, this stuffy right here, this stuffed animal, was the stuffed animal I've had since I was 2 years old. And you can see by how worn out his neck is that I would carry him around like this. And his name is Muddy, who happens to be the best friend of Hedgehog in the story. So if you see Muddy there right next to Hedgehog, that was the inspiration for Muddy. So yes, had to be her little best friend had to be my childhood best friend. So yeah, those are two of the character inspirations right there.
Lauren, now when I read Our Friend Hedgehog, The Story of Us again, because great books you always want to read over and over again, right, everyone? I'm going to be thinking about that Muddy was inspired by your childhood best friends.
Yeah. It was so fun to revisit Muddy and to get to draw him on so many of the pages. So yeah, it was really fun.
Let's enjoy our time with Lauren Castillo. Lauren, take it away.
Right. So, I'll start off by talking a little bit about how I became an author and an illustrator. So probably like a lot of you out there, I love to draw and I love to write my own stories. And a lot of my own stories came from being like inspired by some of the favorite books that I used to read. So like a book Where the Wild Things Are, I read it and I decided I wanted to make my own story about a pirate boy. And I wrote and illustrated my own story. And I would take all of the pages that I created the story with and staple them together. So I actually made, and I wish I had it with me tonight, but I would actually make my own hand-bound books. And I did that a lot starting at the age of 8. So I really wanted to be an author and an illustrator from a young age. And then I went to college or to high school, and I met an art teacher who was an illustrator, and he taught me all about what an illustrator was and the different types of illustration that you could do for a job. And he saw that I was really interested in that, and he kind of helped guide me to make a portfolio to apply to go to art school and study and to learn even more about bookmaking and illustration. And so really from, you know, my early teenage years until college, I was working on putting together a portfolio so that I could hopefully one day illustrate and write a book. So I don't have my first written book here today, but Lauren actually showed you one of the books that I wrote and illustrated, and that is Nana in the City. So that was the third book that I wrote and illustrated. And this is another one called The Troublemaker. And this book I wrote right before Nana in the City. So these are two books that I wrote and illustrated. I did the whole package myself. But even before I was writing, I got into publishing by illustrating other people's stories. So this is a book called Imagine by the Poet Laureate of the United States of, I think, like 2008, I want to say, is when he became Poet Laureate, Juan Felipe Herrera, and he's actually from California too. And this book is about dreaming and imagining who we might be as we grow. And it's very like an inspirational story for kids and adults alike about, you know, realizing your dreams and becoming who you want to be. So I did the illustrations for this book. So you can see, let's see here. Oh, look, Juan Felipe Herrera actually, he signed this copy for me when I met him for the first time, which was really fun. So here's some of the pages. Here's the boy going to school and not being able to speak English very well. He spoke Spanish and he was changing schools, and this is him entering school for the first time. So that is Imagine. That's one of the books I illustrated. Another book I illustrated is called A Boy, a Mouse, and a Spider. And it's the story of E.B. White. And E.B. White might sound familiar to you because E.B. White was the author of the book Charlotte's Web, or Stuart Little, which you can see, whoops, there's kind of the inspiration behind Stuart Little. So this book is a biography, which means it's written about E.B. White as a child, and it talks about how he became inspired to write for children. So this is a picture book biography, and I illustrated, and Barbara Herkert is the author who wrote the story. And then this one, Lauren also showed you, this is 20 Yawns. And a little side note with this book is that I actually lived in California, in Los Angeles, and San Diego for a few months while I was making the artwork for this book. So if you see in the beginning of the story, I set the tone by showing the location and the landscape, and it happens to be based on Oceanside, California, in San Diego. So yeah, that's another one that I illustrated, and that is by Jane Smiley. So books to me have been something, you know, I've always wanted to make since I was really young, and I'm just really grateful that I get to do what I love every day. So even kind of how we're all stuck indoors for the last several months, that's basically my life anyway. I kind of pull up in my studio, in my art studio, and I write and I draw every day. And so for me, things haven't changed too much. That's, you know, just kind of carrying my sketchbook around, and I don't get to do as much location drawing and that sort of thing like I used to do. I would take my sketchbook and go to new places and to draw. So that's something I really miss. But yeah, for me, writing and drawing comes from, you know, inspiration in my mind. So, and, you know, stories that I recall from childhood, or characters that I recall from childhood. I like to bring them into my books. So I showed you guys already Our Friend Hedgehog. So Our Friend Hedgehog is, like Lauren was mentioning, a early reader, or an early chapter book. So it's got lots of words, but it's also has lots of pictures. Every page has illustrations on it. So I did about 100 illustrations for this book, and that's the most illustrations I've ever done for one book. So it took me a really long time to illustrate it, and it also took me a really long time to write it, because this is also the biggest book I've ever written. See, about over 100 pages long. So it was a really fun project to work on. And one of the reasons that I wanted to make a book that was more of an early chapter book is because when I was young, it was hard for me to learn to read. And I used to love picture books because the pictures helped me to read the story. And so I thought it would be great to make a chapter book that had lots of illustrations, so that it would be helpful for kids who were like me when I was young, that needed a little extra help by looking at the pictures. Or maybe you just like illustration and the pictures, and they were just a nice addition to the story. So that's the reason that I chose to make a little bit of a longer chapter book that had so much art in it. So let's see. I think what I'll do now is my dog Keiko is laying down and she's waiting for the story time to begin. So maybe we'll start story time now. And I'm going to take off what is called the dust jacket. So this is the dust jacket that covers the book. And so you'll notice underneath is the case cover. And that looks different. That looks like the notebook that we'll see in the story. So I wanted the actual book cover to look like the notebook that one of the characters carries around in the story. Let's see that red notebook. So I wanted the actual book to look like that red notebook. And then you'll see there's like a little stamp of Muddy and Hedgehog. So the story is an adventure story, and it takes place at this location called Hedge Hollow. And you can see the map of the whole area. Let's see, down here is Hedgehog's Island. Here, I'm going to get on the floor so I can get closer to the screen. There we go. 1 second, let me rearrange this a little bit. Can you see? Hopefully you guys can see pretty well. So this is Hedgehog's Island. This is Owl's Lookout. I'm sorry. This is Beaver's Dam. This is Annika May's house. That's Annika May. She's the human character. This is Hen and Chick's Marsh. And this is Mole's Hole back here. So we'll see a little bit. I'm going to read a few chapters, and then for anybody who's interested in reading more, I know your library's got some ebooks and some actual copies of the book, so maybe you can grab a copy and read the rest yourself or with your family. So Our Friend Hedgehog, the story of us. And it's dedicated, I dedicated the book to every friend and furry friend I've had and will have in this lifetime. Thank you for being a part of my story. So here's the chapters. And this is the full cast of characters. So there's Beaver, Muddy, Hedgehog, Annika May, Owl, Mole, Hen and Chicks. Our Friend Hedgehog. Introduction. Sometimes you make a friend and it feels like you have known that friend your entire life. Hedgehog, Muddy, Mole, Owl, Beaver, Hen and Chicks, and me, Annika May. You might think it has always been this way, but it has not. There was a series of events that brought us all together. This is our friendship story. This is the story of us. At first. So there we see the friends on their island. Between the great forests in the center of the river on a teeny tiny island lived two dear friends, Hedgehog and Muddy, just the two of them and no one else. They spent all their days together, playing, imagining, dreaming. There were moments when the island felt lonely and Hedgehog wished for more. But most of the time, she was just happy to be with her friend. Life was good. That was until the night of the terrible storm, a storm that brought the meanest wind Hedgehog had ever known. It whistled, it huffed, it swooped down, and carried her friend away. So Muddy's being taken away in the storm. Alone. There's Hedgehog on her island. Hedgehog was all alone. She called out for Muddy again and again, but only the mean wind answered. Hedgehog sat and wept, and wept, and wept some more. But crying would not bring Muddy back. She knew what she needed to do. Hedgehog stood up. She stared long and hard at her reflection in the murky river water. She took a deep breath, jumped in, and set off on a journey to find her dear friend. The river was rough, but luckily Hedgehog was a good swimmer. She could swim all the strokes, including the backstroke, which was her favorite. Hedgehog made it safely to the mainland where the forest began. She had watched the wind carry Muddy in this direction, and she hoped she would find him here safe among the trees. Hedgehog had seen the forest from her island, but it was even greater and much more frightening now that she was standing in it. An army of trees blew and swayed and cast their scary shadows over her, but she would not show her fear. Hedgehog stood up tall and marched along, calling Muddy's name whenever she heard a sound. She marched and marched, called and called again, not a Muddy in sight. In this big foreign place, Hedgehog felt smaller than ever before. She missed her tiny island, but she had to keep going. She searched under ferns and in clusters of mushrooms. Then she climbed onto a stump to get a better view. Most things in the forest reminded Hedgehog of her friend, but a passing butterfly made her saddest of all. It was beginning to get dark, and still there was no sign of Muddy. Hedgehog scouted out a safe place to rest until she could continue her search in the morning. She had just found a nice, cozy pile of leaves when down, down, down into a hole she plunged. All right, I think that's a good place to stop. Here, I'll give you a sneak peek of what's to come. Looks like she's about to meet her first new friend, who might be Mole. And here, let me grab my Mole inspiration. All right. Okay, so the reading part is done. Here is my Mole inspiration. This is Keiko. She is 14 and a half, like I said before, and I'm kind of interrupting her bedtime right now. So, all right, so I'm going to show you guys a little bit of the art from the book, and maybe, I'll start out right now with some character drawings. We'll start with some character drawings of Mole. So before Mole became who Mole is in the book, I had to figure out what she would look like. So here's some kind of rough drawings of how she would look. So they're kind of funny. So those are some of the character drawings. But I do lots and lots of drawings to figure out what I want Mole to look like, and then what I want all the other characters to look like. Here are some even earlier ones. So let's see. Here's some drawings of Owl. Owl comes a little bit later in the story. So if you get a copy of the book, you'll see more of Owl in the pages to come. So there's Owl. Owl likes reading. Here is Hen. Hen's trait is that she is a collector and she likes to collect storm trash. And what else do we have? And here's some drawings of Muddy. And there's tons more drawings in this sketchbook. I'm going to put Keiko down, so say bye, Keiko. Bye-bye. Okay. Let Keiko go take her nap. And I will show you a few more original pieces of art from the book. So here, this is the actual drawing that was printed in the story. So I used ink pen. And in fact, I might have it. Just a pen like this. And watercolor pencils to do the art for the book. I wanted to keep it really loose and scratchy like I would in my sketchbook. So that's why I chose those materials to work with. So here is a drawing of Owl, one of the pages in the book. Let's see. This is the back cover drawing of the book. In fact, this is the printed dust jacket I showed you, and then here is the, so if I can hold them together, let's see. What else do we have? Some drawings don't work out so good, like this one, so I end up redrawing them. Can't find the one that ended up going into the story, but sometimes I'll rework a drawing a few times before I get it the way I like it. So you'll notice I have lots of drawings on this page. I like to not waste my paper. So sometimes I'll draw lots of pictures on one page. So there's Beaver. Beaver's got some attitude. And let's see, here's another one that's got multiple drawings on it. And you'll notice too, something you'll notice about my art is that it's pretty small, isn't it? Here's my hand, and there's the drawing. So that's a pretty small drawing. I really like to draw tiny. And so sometimes the art from my books, I draw it small, and then the publisher enlarges the drawing to print it on the page. And then here's another drawing of Hedgehog climbing the beaver dam. All right, I'm not sure what we're at time-wise, but I'd love to show you guys the drawing demo, and maybe you'd like to draw along with me. I am going to draw the main character Hedgehog and show you kind of how you can draw it with some simple lines. So if we're ready to do, are we ready to do that now maybe? Oh, there we go. Perfect. So maybe you guys want to follow along with my my drawing demo here. Great. Yeah, Lauren, I hope you're drawing.
Hedgehog is the main character in the series, Our Friend Hedgehog, The Story of Us. And we're going to draw her today. We are going to, before we start drawing, I want to show you the full cast of the characters. So here is the cast. So here's Hedgehog. And this is her best friend, Muddy. And these are the characters that become then her good friends that she meets along the way in this adventure story. So, all right, let's get started. We'll start with a little sketchbook here. Okay. So I like to draw in sketchbooks, small ones preferably. I am a big fan of drawing tiny, as you can see right there. And I love to draw with pens. This is called a Tumbo pen. It's a calligraphy pen, but sometimes I draw with ballpoint pens or just pencil or even a crayon or a colored pencil. These are watercolored pencils. So if they get wet after you draw with them, let me show you how they get wet. So if I dip my finger in some water, I can just about turns into watercolor. So it's pretty cool. Just by this little pencil, you can paint with it with your finger. So I'm going to show you how I draw Hedgehog. So we start with her head. So she's got a big round noggin there. Actually, it's a tiny noggin. A little nose. Little mouth here. So here's her eye. Let's give her an ear. And hedgehogs have what are called spines. They are like hairs we have as humans, and the spines sort of protect these little creatures. So here, give Hedgehog a little arm there. Here's more spines on her back. Give her a belly here. A little foot in the front. And a little foot there showing in the back. Give her a bit more spines on her belly. Okay. There we go. Hedgehog loves nature. She is probably holding a flower. Right. A wildflower. And her friend Chick is sitting on the wildflower. There we go. There's Chick. Now, we've got to give Hedgehog a place to be sitting in. So I'm going to use my watercolored pencils. Actually, wait, I forgot one important thing about Hedgehog. She's got a very rosy cheek. That's a big trait of Hedgehog here. That's how we know her from other hedgehogs, is that she's got this rosy cheek, and she's got a little bit of rosiness going on in her ear right there. So let's give her some grass. This flower here. We'll make this I'm going to use one of my markers. This is a red flower. There we go. And maybe put a shadow. It's sunny out. So this hedgehog's got a little bit of a shadow underneath of her from the sun that casts that. There we go. And then if I wet my finger again, I can sort of paint with that watercolor pencil. Let's give Chick some color too. Chick's got an orange beak. And Chick has a brother. So let's add Chick's brother, Chick number 2, on top of Hedgehog's head. The Chicks are very curious little guys here. All right. Got to color in Chick's brother. There you have it. Let's give Hedgehog a little bit more spines. So basically, Hedgehog's pretty easy to draw. She's got lots of little lines throughout her body. Those are all the little spines. I wonder if you've ever met a hedgehog. I've always wanted a hedgehog as a pet, but I haven't had a pet hedgehog yet. Maybe in the future. All right. There you have it. I'll sign my name. That's what we always do after we make a drawing. Lauren Castillo. And there you have it. Our Friend Hedgehog and her Chick friends.
Yay! Miss Lauren, I'd love to see your drawing if you have. Do it.
I'm doing a little coloring.
Okay.
I'm doing
No pressure. You don't. Oh, look how awesome it is! That's so great. I love it.
I didn't have time to sign it yet.
You still have to finish it. I know. That's so great. I love it.
I loved also the relaxing music in the
good.
background and just hearing your soothing voice. And also because I've read the book numerous times, I was just thinking of how just so sweet Hedgehog is. Hedgehog is just so sweet, and she loves Muddy so much, and she's brave enough to go on this adventure to save and find Muddy. And I know she was nervous in the beginning, but then she got to meet all of these wonderful friends along the way.
No, if she hadn't taken that chance, then she wouldn't have made so many new friends. So yeah, absolutely. It was just such a joy of a book to write, and I loved developing each of the characters and having sort of either a pet or somebody I knew in mind to, use their personalities to build the characters. So it was a lot of fun. In
Lauren,
fact,
you definitely reached your goal on that.
I'm actually right now, this summer, have been working on the second book. This is going to be a series, so I'm very excited to revisit the characters and to write a new story that they're a part of. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. I'd love to. I know we're good on time. I'd love to answer any questions that people have, but also maybe before we do that, I wanted to share. I forgot to share this earlier. That my books don't start out, like my drawings don't start out nice or large even. This right here is a very tiny storyboord where I'm trying to figure out what to show on each page. So I go through lots of these little storyboards to then, kind of, I build on it and I edit it, and then I work on a new one, and then I go through lots of these before they become like full-blown drawings. So I think that's important for everybody to see that, like, a book doesn't, you don't just sit down with an empty, some empty pages and draw it out. There's a lot of steps behind it, and there's a lot of mistakes along the way, and it's a challenging but fun process for sure. So in fact, this is the very, very first page of Hedgehog drawings. She was called The Hedgehog then. Oops, I'm having a hard time centering my page. So yeah, she looked different in the beginning. She didn't look exactly how she turned out in the book at first. So yeah, that's the fun part of the process too, is developing the character and trying to figure out exactly how you want that character to look for the entire span of the book, because you have to keep drawing the character over and over again. So you want to be able to draw something that you really like and is what you envisioned. So yeah. I'd love to do questions and take some time if kids, adults, teachers, anybody that's watching has any questions. I always like the Q&A part of these talks. So
Thank you very much to Lauren Castillo. If you do have a question for Lauren, please type it in the chat and we will do our best to answer all of the questions.
Yeah.
So let's look at the chat. So I had already seen a wonderful question. Can you recommend resources for children to illustrate their stories? Thank you for that great question.
More like kind of tools for children, would you say? I mean, I would recommend starting with wherever you live. Look to see if there's any, art classes going on. Either if that's at the library or maybe I know in my town, our museum actually holds art classes for students, and they even do like private sessions with like one-on-one with kids. I think getting into a class or a program is a great way. For me, I taught myself how to write children's books by going to the library and checking out a bunch of books and studying those books, and then maybe writing my own story based on that children's book. Like maybe it was the character that I responded to, and then I wrote my own story based on that character. So that's kind of how I practiced writing and illustrating when I was young. I don't know. I hope that's a little bit helpful. There aren't any specific like websites or anything that I can think of to point you to for children. But I would say starting with your library and your art museum or any like art communities in your area, start there and see if there's any programs you can join. Yeah.
I see some comments. Yay for Hedgehog. There's another question. How do you pick a style for a particular project?
Oh, that's a good question. So often I will start with, I'll kind of envision a color palette. I can speak on my book, Nana in the City. Mm-hmm. This was a story that took place in the fall. So I wanted to have lots of kind of lush, fall colors. And the palette that I used actually started out being very kind of monotone and gray because it kind of played into the boy's mood and his hesitancy about the city, being a little bit scared of being in a big city coming from a smaller town. So I used the color palette to kind of work with how I was going to create the art. And when they eventually go back into the city the second day and the boy is feeling more comfortable with the city, more excited and enthusiastic about it, the colors got brighter. I can show you like this is one of the final spreads where they're in Times Square and everything is much more vibrant in the city. So color palette plays a big part into it. And then a lot of my books have a similar style to them. So I wouldn't say the style's too different. Like I use kind of a thick line. It's got a lot of texture. You'll notice if you see the texture in the line, oftentimes it's because I draw small and then the drawings are enlarged. So the line drawings get a little bit grainy because they're enlarged to be printed to the size of the book. So, but for the chapter book, for Our Friend Hedgehog, I wanted to do something that felt more sketchbook-like to me. I was really interested in using that, just a regular pen and colored pencils that I would have used when I was a kid. I just really liked the idea of kind of having an immediacy to the drawings. And so I would say this is the most different in the span of the books I've illustrated. But yeah, I would say for me, the biggest difference would be the color palette I choose in each book. And I like to kind of have like a staple color and then run with that. I don't have it here, but in the book Yard Sale, it's a book about a family that's moving and downsizing. And I had never really used pink in my art before. It wasn't like a color that I like to use, but I decided to choose that color and make the house like this kind of corally pink. And that became like the staple color that I worked everything around in that story. So I think color plays a big part in how I imagine the artwork to look. So yeah.
Thank you, Lauren. Another question is, do you have a studio? Where do you draw?
Well, right now, I draw in this room where I'm sitting because my studio is currently closed. I have a studio that's with other artists, but it's in the place, it's in a building, an old millworks factory, and there's a restaurant in that building. And because of COVID, they have shut the building down for the time being. So we actually haven't been using our studios. So I'm fortunate enough that I have a space in my house, but yeah, I just, I sometimes like to work on the floor. I work on the couch. I have very poor working, postures and skills. Like I'll just lay on the floor on my stomach and work on my drawing and, or do a painting on the floor. And it's like, that's kind of how I was when I was a kid. And that's what I did in college to get through art school. So it's like, it hasn't really changed for me being like, this being my job, I still work on the floor. So for better or worse. But yeah, I can show you a little bit of, this is my room. That corner right there is my little office desk. So not very exciting, right? Yeah, but that's my space. My dog is sleeping now contentedly.
Lauren,
that was a great question.
It was a great question. You still have that childlike energy about you. So when you were talking about drawing on the floor, I could picture you working on all your wonderful books, drawing on the floor. Because I noticed the books that you write and illustrate always have this warmth, but humor, like slight humor, like the Troublemaker. The little boy has a stuffed raccoon, and then there's a real raccoon in the story. And you just have nice little slight humorous touches in your stories.
Oh, well, thank you. I wish that my books could be funny books, but it just doesn't work out that way for me. So I don't write the funny books, unfortunately. Yeah,
No,
Troublemaker is as far as I'm gonna go with the funny.
no, it's a humor it's just organic.
Yeah, well, thank you. And all the books I've written to date, they're really like the Troublemaker, for example. It was a book based on something that happened like when my brother and I were young. We had raccoons that kind of invaded my family's trash and backyard, and so it was kind of based off of that childhood memory of like, where can I take this, what can I do with this raccoon character, and how can I build a story. So I really like to look back on kind of childhood memories and base stories off of those. In fact, the Nana in the City that I was showing you just before, this is based on my own Nana who still lives in New York City. And I, as a kid, like, we moved away from the city when I was young, and so, but when I was really young, and so I lived in more of a suburban kind of, in the country per se, and I would go like a couple times a year, or at least in the summers, to visit Nana. And I was really timid and frightened by the city, but she kind of made me have a love of city life. And then later on, I ended up moving back to New York as an adult. So that was another childhood memory that made its way into a book. So yeah, like, for me, like, that's the way that I get my ideas, is based on those memories from childhood. So
Wonderful. Another question is, where do you come up with your ideas for character design? Do you ever take walks into nature or the park to draw your ideas? Great question.
I do. I love drawing in nature, drawing, even if it's just in my backyard this summer. I love taking my sketchbook with me wherever I go, and capturing the places that I visit. And yeah, I like to, even in Our Friend Hedgehog, like, just, upside down, drawing plants and things like that, drawing sunflowers. Like, I really like to have reference, and to draw from life first before I move into my illustrated work. So the characters are less so, like, they're more from my memory, or from my head. But I would say the landscapes and the locations and the stories are very much based on places that I've been, or photographs I've taken from places that I've been, that sort of thing. Just like in 20 Yawns that I was showing earlier, like, the whole location that I selected to draw from in this book was where I was living at the time, which was Oceanside, California. So yeah, I would say definitely, and I encourage anybody, whether they're a writer or even if you're not an artist, a writer, a musician, or just interested in carrying a journal or a sketchbook. I think it's really, like, an important and fun practice to carry and take notes of, like, interesting things you see, or do a sketch of, like, a cute bird, or like a pretty plant or flower that you see, and like it's a different way of capturing like a time or a place than it is to take a photograph. It's just a different experience, and it makes you, when you look back in your notebook or your journal and you see it brings back, like, different memories of that time, that and where you were and who you were with, maybe. Or it's just an interesting thing to have also as a keepsake, is like that sketchbook or that journal. And if you're a writer or an illustrator, it's important, because you never know if, like, a drawing that you do will inspire a story later on, or, like, some observation that you wrote down might end up in a story somewhere down the line. So I think, like, sketchbooks are really important for that reason too. So yeah, definitely.
Great. And then we have one last question. During drafting and creating projects, do you catch previous influences pop into your thoughts?
Um, yeah, I would say like previous influences. I wonder from like other books or media that I've seen. Like, I wonder if they mean more like kind of does it disrupt me from creating, or if it, what do you think the question is asking specifically? During drafting and creating projects, do you catch previous influences pop into your thoughts?
Well, I know, Lauren, a lot of you goes into your stories. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if he's asking other people's work maybe, or things you've just seen. So not just your personal, because I know personally a lot of you goes into your work, but maybe just other outside influences. Anything else?
I would say so. Like, you know, depending on whatever subject it is, I think it's hard to turn that off when you're working on something. But I would say this is what came to me specifically. Like, say I was working on a book about a hedgehog. I would probably steer clear of a lot of like current media that related to the same subject. I don't know if this is where their question was headed at all, but like, it's funny because this book came out around the same time as Sonic the Hedgehog, and I was like, oh my God, that's so weird. Like, that movie off of the game, and it was just kind of purely coincidental. But I would say like, I wouldn't seek inspiration from like for example, like new books out there. I wouldn't like go look for inspiration from books on the same topic, because I would be afraid that whether it was intentional or not, something, I would be taking something from their book and their experience. Like, so I try to kind of keep myself in my own little space while I'm working on a project. But that said, like, I'm very open to, I'm all about research and reference. And I think it's important to be doing that work while you're working on the project. Like, even something as small as researching islands, like small islands. And I live on a river where there are all these small islands. And so like, I was really interested in like what maybe was on those islands, and like just thinking about, what went into, and this ended up mostly being from my imagination, but I wanted to put in the research and to think about, what types of vegetation and, bugs or whatever you might find on that island. And I think it's important to be collecting research along the way when you're working on a book. So.
Thank you, Lauren. I know I said that was the last question, but this will be our great last question right here. What is the color of the paint on your wall?
Oh,
Andy loves it.
Well, thank you. We call it the salmon room, but I have to admit, it was here when we moved here. So I don't actually know the swatch. But I would say, yeah, it's a very orangey pink color. We like to call it the salmon room. I don't know. I don't know what the swatch is, but it's a very bright room, yes. And what's funny is I'm wearing my bright like green overalls, and I happen to match like all the green and I did not plan this at all, but I kind of blend into the couch. So yeah.
It's the artist in you.
Yes, I know. But we like color. So like, the downstairs is a very bright blue, and yeah, I'm in bright clothing. So I don't know. I like the color. What can I say? As much as I would like to do a book with black and white art, I feel like it would be so hard not to put some splashes of color in there. So yeah. Like I said before, like when I'm determining kind of what the art for the book's gonna look like one of the first thoughts is, okay, what's the color palette? So yeah, color's an important thing. But sorry, I don't know the answer to your question. That was just a long rambling answer about me loving color.
the whole purpose of these programs is to learn about these wonderful, talented authors and illustrators and just to get some insight on their wonderful work. So that was just a great answer because we just got to know you right there.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks for the great questions, everyone. And yeah, loved answering. And if you at home have done any hedgehog drawings you'd like to share, it'd be awesome if you would share with Lauren in the library. Oh,
I tried.
It's so good, Lauren Kratz. Good job. Round of applause.
No, a round of applause to you.
I know. I truly would love to see your drawings. So please share them with the library, and maybe they can post them on social media or something. Yeah, awesome.
Yes, please, everyone. If you did draw a hedgehog, you can send it to us in our social media channels or via email, anywhere that you see fit and feel comfortable with, and we can share them with the wonderful Lauren Castillo. Thank you, Lauren, for being with us for our final Your Author series for the summer. But don't forget, everyone, we're going to be back in September for more wonderful Your Author series events and programming where we're able to connect with these wonderful, talented authors and illustrators, children and young adults, to really get to know them and get to know their great works. So thank you again, Lauren. This was wonderful.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, and thank you all for the wonderful questions and comments. And in closing, just those few reminders really quickly. Summer reading program. It is still going on virtually until August 31st. So please help us get to that goal of 50,000 days of reading. Please visit the website lapl.org/summer to record the wonderful and reading and learning you did this summer. Follow that hashtag free comic book summer LAPL. Support our local comic book stores and wonderful graphic novelists and artists. Also, next Thursday, August 27th, make your own comic program. So remember, everybody, anytime you're looking for something to do at the library, virtual programs, visit our online calendar. And for that question for that lovely caregiver about their 4-year-old, I know also on Instagram, there have been superhero comic programs. So I know next Wednesday, there was technical difficulties, and next Wednesday at 4, there's going to be Draw Superheroes. And I know there have been previous programs about drawing. So please check out the main library's Instagram and maybe check that out, because I know a lot of times they say it's for young adults, but I know a lot of children that enjoy these programs too, of all ages. So that may be an idea. And finally, Los Angeles Libros Festival again, but virtually. It's a bilingual book festival for all families throughout Los Angeles, and it will be on Saturday, September 26th. So please keep on the lookout for that and visiting the library's website and social media channels for more information coming up. Your author friends Joseph Peda and Juana Martinez-Neal will be there. So I love them. And I love Lauren Castillo. Thank you, Lauren. Los Angeles Library, get Lauren Castillo's books. Yes. Library to go. You can do a contact-free pickup appointment and get all of wonderful Lauren Castillo's books. Please keep on the lookout for Our Friend Hedgehog, The Story of Us. It is available on Overdrive right now to place on hold. And also soon it will be in our libraries to pick up with our Library to Go program. Visit the library for more details. Keep enjoying Lauren Castillo's wonderful works, especially her most recent book, Our Friend Hedgehog, The Story of Us. Lauren, I'm looking forward to book 2. I can't wait.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Library Foundation, Lenore S., Bernard A. Greenberg Fund for making this programming possible during the summer and in the fall. Bye, Lauren.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.